Hello, and welcome to some Dodge family history. This is where I present information and research on my ancestors who served in the military during the early 20th century. Today, I will be presenting on the military service of Sergeant David Nemetzky, Medical Department, from his re-enlistment in September of 1919 through his re-enlistment and transfer back overseas in 1924. In addition, we will also go back and look at the issuing of his service number, the awards he would have received, as well as his furlough to the Regular Army Reserve and discharge in 1919. We will use records that are available online, such as the monthly muster rolls on Family Search, the morning reports on Fold 3, and his reconstructed file from the National Archives in St. Louis to tell the story of this chapter of his military service. In February of 1918, service numbers were issued to all Army personnel in order to help properly identify each soldier who was serving in the Army, as by this time the number of military personnel had increased greatly with America's entry into World War I. From the Fold 3 website, on February 12, 1918, the Army issued General Order No. 27, which reads, "All soldiers of the United States Army will be numbered by or before February 28, 1918. As soon as a number is assigned to a soldier, it will become a part of his official designation, never changed, never reassigned to another soldier." Fold 3 also explains that the same order also noted that the number would be stamped on the soldier's identification tags and appear conspicuous on the military records, rolls, and reports for the individual. Service numbers were issued based on where each soldier was stationed. David Nemetzky's service number was 850422. Those who served with him at the Presidio of the San Francisco also have the 850 as the first three numbers of their service number. This number appears on the bi-monthly and monthly muster rolls beginning in 1918, as well as appearing on his enlistment and discharge record issued upon his honorable discharge in August of 1919. When he re-enlisted in September of 1919, Sergeant Nemetzky retained the same service number. According to the Wikipedia article Service Number, United States Army, in 1920, a year after the close of World War I, the Army introduced the first service number prefix, which was intended to be a letter placed in front of the service number to provide additional information about the veteran. The first prefix to be created was R, which was used to identify regular Army personnel who had re-enlisted after the close of World War I. This R prefix first appears on the monthly muster rolls for David Nemetzky in January of 1920 and was maintained throughout the remainder of his military career. As far as awards and decorations, David Nemetzky would have earned the World War I Victory Medal. This was available to all service members who served during World War I, regardless of their place of service. Issued after the end of the war, service members had to apply for the medal by submitting an application and a copy of their discharge to the Adjutant General's office. Sergeant Nemetzky would also have received the Honorable Discharge Chevron following his discharge in August of 1919. The Honorable Discharge Chevron is a red chevron that is worn on the upper part of the left sleeve of the uniform. During World War I, Gold War service chevrons were issued to those who were serving at the war front, with each chevron indicating 6 months of duty. In December of 1918, the War Department issued General Order 122, authorizing Silver War service chevrons to be issued to each soldier serving within the United States. This order was made retroactive to April 6, 1917, allowing for each soldier to receive recognition for their service stateside, with each silver chevron indicating 6 months of duty. Time accrued for the war service chevrons continued until October of 1919. The Army and Navy Journal from October 11, 1919 reports, "The Secretary of War directs that service rendered in the Army after October 4, 1919 will not be counted towards the acquirement of service chevrons, gold or silver." David Nemetzky would have received a total of 4 silver war service chevrons for his service between April of 1917 and June of 1919. It also appears that David Nemetzky may have been eligible for the Mexican Border Service Medal. Approved for issue in 1918, this medal was issued to both National Guard and regular Army who served along the American-Mexican border between May 9, 1916 and March 24, 1917. Sergeant Nemetzky served at Camp Fort Bliss at El Paso, Texas, from August 1916 to February of 1917, and at Base Hospital No. 5, Nogales, Arizona, from February to April of 1917. However, no records exist of his applying for or receiving this medal. On June 13, 1919, David Nemetzky was furloughed to the Regular Army Reserve. The regulations for furlough to the regular Army Reserve provided for him to apply for furlough to the regular Army Reserve, as he had served more than 4 years on active duty in the Army. He had been on active duty since his enlistment on April 11, 1914, more than 5 years earlier. The published muster rules for USA Embarkation No. 4, New York City, where he was stationed at the time of his furlough to the regular Army Reserve, include a letter indicating that his request for furlough had been approved on June 8, 1919. The forms that are referenced in this letter are Form 559 and Form 135-3, both to the Adjutant General's office. Form 135-3 is a physical examination showing that he was in good physical condition, and Form 559 is a report of furlough. It appears that the original forms no longer exist, and that copies of these forms would have been placed in this 201 file, which, as discussed previously, were destroyed in the 1973 fire. He remained in the regular Army Reserve until August 27, 1919, when he received his honorable discharge. In order for him to be returned to active duty, he would have requested a discharge from the regular Army Reserve, which was approved on August 21, 1919, and issued on August 27, 1919. His discharge papers indicate that he was discharged from the regular Army Reserve for the purpose of reenlistment, which he did on September 9, 1919. When he reenlisted, he maintained his rank of Master Hospital Sergeant. Master Hospital Sergeant David Nemetzky reenlisted at New York City on September 9, 1919, and was received at Fort Slocum, New York. The next day, orders were issued for him to report to USA General Hospital No. 2 at Fort McHenry, Maryland. He reported there 3 days later on September 13th. According to the morning reports for Fort McHenry, he was sick in the hospital from October 7th to October 20th. On October 30th, 1919, he received orders to report to General Hospital No. 41, Fox Hills, Staten Island, New York. The morning reports indicate that he left Fort McHenry on November 1st, 1919, and reported to General Hospital No. 41 2 days later. Sergeant Nemetzky would be stationed at General Hospital No. 41, later known as Hoff General Hospital, from November of 1919 until October of 1920. The morning reports that are available on Fold 3 help fill in this part of his military service, as there are no monthly returns for Fox Hills for November and December of 1919, and the monthly return for General Hospital No. 2 at Fort McHenry for November of 1919 does not appear to have been microfilmed. In the beginning of 1920, the Army rank structure looked like this. Numerous ranks spread across 21 different departments within the Army. The chart of this Army rank structure is taken from Wikipedia. On June 4, 1920, Congress enacted legislation that streamlined the rank structure of the Army. Effective July 1, 1920, there would be 7 enlisted ranks from private to master sergeant. However, this rank reorganization would also eliminate the emergency promotions that were issued during World War I. So many soldiers who were master sergeants within their specific departments ended up losing their rank and being reverted back to the rank that they held before the war. For David Nemetzky, this meant that he was reduced back to the rank of sergeant, the highest rank he held before World War I. During his time at Fox Hills, Sergeant Nemetzky was enumerated in the 1920 census. According to the 1920 census, he was 34 years old, single, born in Poland, a naturalized U.S. citizen, and could read and write. Also during his time at Fox Hills, he was on detached service during April of 1920, as well as during July and August of 1920, although the morning reports and monthly returns do not indicate where his detached service took place. The morning reports and monthly returns also indicate that beginning in July of 1920, Sergeant Nemetzky was reverted back to the rank of sergeant, although these returns and reports initially stated in error that he had been reverted to the rank of Staff Sergeant. In October of 1920, he was transferred to the attending surgeon's office in New York City. On December 15, 1920, Sergeant Nemetzky was promoted to the rank of Staff Sergeant, a rank he would hold for the remainder of his military service. In May of 1921, while serving at the attending surgeon's office in New York City, Staff Sergeant Nemetzky was furloughed for 2 months. His furlough was then extended for an additional 30 days. On August 8, 1921, while on furlough, he was transferred back to Letterman General Hospital in San Francisco. He reported to Letterman General for duty on August 17, 1921. On September 10, 1921, Staff Sergeant Nemetzky was sent on detached service to Fort Steilacoom, Washington, where he remained until the 16th. Staff Sergeant Nemetzky spent the first week of December 1921 in Letterman General Hospital as a patient, where he was treated for pharyngitis. In 1922, he was sent for detached service to Plattsburgh Barracks, New York on June 24th and returned to Letterman General on July 13th. On July 24th, 1922, he was again admitted to Letterman General Hospital, where he had his tonsils removed. He was back on duty on August 9, 1922. He completed his 3-year enlistment on September 8, 1922, and was honorably discharged. Staff Sergeant Nemetzky re-enlisted the next day, September 9, 1922, and continued on his military service as a staff sergeant at Letterman General Hospital. He took a 10-day furlough in October of 1922 and another 2-month furlough in January of 1923, although he returned from his second furlough after only a month and was back on duty at the end of February. On March 22, 1923, Staff Sergeant Nemetzky was again back on detached service, this time being assigned to the recruiting station at Fort Douglas in Salt Lake City, Utah. He arrived there on March 23rd. The month of return for Fort Douglas for April of 1923 indicate that Staff Sergeant Nemetzky had been sent on detached service to Brigham City, Utah, which is about 60 miles north of Salt Lake City. He would return to Letterman General Hospital on May 16, 1923. Staff Sergeant Nemetzky was transferred to William Beaumont General Hospital at El Paso, Texas, on July 16, 1923, arriving there 2 days later. He would serve at Beaumont General Hospital for only 6 months when he received orders to be discharged and re-enlisted so that he could be transferred back overseas. The Army Regulation 615-210 provided for him to be discharged and re-enlisted for the convenience of the government. It is likely that this Army regulation was used so that he could be transferred overseas without having to re-enlist while being overseas. On January 21, 1924, Staff Sergeant Nemetzky was honorably discharged and then re-enlisted the next day. On January 26, 1924, he was sent to the Overseas Discharge and Replacement Depot at Fort McDowell, California. From there, he sailed aboard the U.S. Army Transport Thomas back to Tientsin, China. I hope you have enjoyed this presentation and found it informative. From his re-enlistment in 1919 to his honorable discharge and re-enlistment in 1924, the Army streamlined its rank structure, greatly affecting Staff Sergeant Nemetzky. The Army also provided awards for military service, such as the World War I Victory Medal, to acknowledge and recognize the service of those who either enlisted or were drafted. Through all of this, Staff Sergeant Nemetzky continued his service. The next and final presentation will look at Staff Sergeant Nemetzky's re-enlistment and continued military service in the Army Medical Department from 1924 to his final honorable discharge by purchase in 1931. Thank you.